Hey, I was going to try to do this horizontally, but it won't let me rotate my phone. It's being weird. We're on the road, as you can tell. So I'm coming to you live from the road. And now I'm probably bouncing all over. So anyway, sorry about that, but we are still here with November and the power of no. So let's talk a little bit today about fear and how we say no to fear, because that's a really powerful thing, enough that we're going to talk about it for 2 days. So I am a real big fan of Jane Austen, especially Pride and Prejudice, and I own tons and tons of I own the books, I own almost all the film adaptations, I own almost every prequel, sequel, whatever that you can imagine of those books, except for 2, and Les has tried very hard to convince me to buy them, but I refuse to buy them. The first one is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and the second one is Mr. Darcy Vampire. I'm not about to allow zombies and vampires to ruin my favorite stories. So, I wanted to think about vampires, and that I hate them, the whole thought of them. I don't know a lot about them, but I know that they rise up in the night, that they're undead, and I know that they have this blood-sucking habit, and I know that they're conquered by the cross of Jesus. So I thought they make a pretty good illustration of how fear works, because fear can suck the lifeblood out of us as well. Fears often rise up in the night, at least mine do, and they're also already dead, so you can't really kill them, and they just keep coming back. So how do we handle fear? How do we get rid of it? Well, I think what can help is a little perspective. So I want to tell you a quick story. One day I was out taking a walk in my neighborhood, and all of a sudden this gigantic insect flew at my face and got behind my glasses and blocked my vision. And I grabbed my glasses, ripped them off my face to get rid of it, and looked down, and it was a gnat. A tiny little gnat. It had looked so huge because it was right up against my eye, but in reality it wasn't large at all. See, it was a matter of focus and perspective. When I had it right there and I was so focused on it, it seemed gigantic. And I think the things we fear, often we run into that issue. We're so focused on this thing that we make it much bigger than it is. Sorry, I know we're bouncing. I hope you're not getting seasick watching. And because of that, we tend to keep our focus right there, and it just gets bigger and bigger and worse, and it just absorbs all of our attention. And it then spills over into other areas of our lives and infects our lives in multiple ways. So what can make a difference? How do we shift our perspective, our focus, so that we're not focusing on that thing we fear? Well, for me, one of the best things I can do is shift my focus onto my relationship with God and to my faith. I think about the God who we describe in the Lord's Prayer as our Father. I think about him as the shepherd of the 23rd Psalm. And I try to think about that because I believe in a good God. I believe in a God who cares for us, even in a broken world, even when we don't understand. I remember once having a card that said that God is always present, and when we can't understand what he's doing, we can always trust his heart, even when we can't see his hand. And so that's what I try to do. That helps me shift my perspective off of my fear onto this all-powerful God who is my Father and my shepherd. Now, if you don't have faith in a God like that, well, I'd love to talk to you about that and explain why I do, but you're going to have to find other ways to shift your perspective. One of the things that can help with that is we talked about on the 17th of November is gratitude. You can begin to be grateful for the things in your life, which will help you get rid of some of that fear. Another thing that is really helpful, and it seems counterintuitive, but is this. Ask yourself, what is the very worst thing that could happen if this comes true, what I'm afraid of? And then ask yourself honestly, what is the likelihood of that? Then take it another step. How bad is that really, if it actually happened? And then think through, honestly, if it happened, then what? What are the steps I would take if that really happened? See, thinking through those steps can put fear in its perspective, and it can give you some really practical steps if this thing that you fear actually did come to pass. Hey, we're going to come back on tomorrow and talk about more ways to say no to fear, but I hope you're having a great day, and we'll see you here tomorrow. Take care.